Welcome to Hey Dad Podcast. Real dads, tough issues, and a genuine love for a fatherless generation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rick Rivera. I'd like to thank you for all of your support you've shown this show. On YouTube, we're up to 25 subscribers. And to be honest, I'm a little shocked at the views we've gotten. And it's been anywhere from 120 to 30, 40, but it seems to hover around maybe 50. And I'm just so honored and blessed. We started the show slowly, and that was intentional. We have a learning curve. We have to get used to YouTube. And we're honestly, I'm getting ahead of myself, but thank you so much for watching. And thank you for your encouragement. Your comments are so encouraging. I read them all. And it's just a blessing to us. I'd like to share with you how the Hey Dad podcast got started, where we are now, and where we want the show to go. But first, a little bit about myself. Originally, I'm from East Los Angeles, California, Boyle Heights area. I moved to Pico Rivera in elementary school. And I was raised by my grandmother pretty much from 5th grade on. And most importantly, I found God at age 15. I'll go into a little more about that in the short future. So how I came up with the idea of the Hey Dad podcast, I really started from my father. I didn't have a father really in my life for the second half of my life growing up or into my adult life. My father had moved out of the country and we were estranged. And then we finally reconnected. By the time we reconnected, I was married with 2 children and he had no idea. But so it starts with my father. My father was from Puerto Rico. He was from the Buenos Aires area. He was raised there. His mom abandoned him in Puerto Rico. So he was raised by grandparent, aunts, so forth, and he got passed around from house to house. And he finally ended up, of all things, and this is strange, with his father's ex-wife raising him. So he didn't have his father or mother in his life. And then he moved to Puerto Rico at age 16 to be with his biological mother. And it's a long story. But the sad truth is his own brothers didn't know he existed because she never told them. And so he moves to New York in this environment with a stepfather who really didn't want him there. And he very quickly joined the army at age 17. So when he joined the army, he served his time in the military. And when he got out, he moved to Kentucky, he moved to Virginia, and then he moved to California. And that's where he met my mother. My mother is from San Antonio, Texas. So that makes me a Mexican. There's not a lot of us out there, but that's what I am. So when I think of my father's life, it really makes me think of a Bible verse that speaks about generational curses. I'm going to read a scripture from the Bible. It's Exodus 34, 6 and 7. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation. This, in the original context, was really written for the Jews in the time when they were in the desert with Moses and they were exiting out of Egypt. But when I read this, it just so rings true today. It seems like a concept that's just very real, that there's these generational curses that follow families. So, how many times have you heard it said, you're just like your father? Or how many people in your life have you seen where alcoholism spreads from the father to the son to the grandchild. And it's sad. And it can feel hopeless. A lot of times, many people just continue the pattern because that's what they're comfortable with and that's all they know. So I understand that there's a big problem right now. There's a fatherless generation. And this problem's as big as it's ever been. And it's very common for men to be raised without a father in their life. And it's very common that for them to follow the sins of their father. And it's very easy. It's a life they're comfortable with. It's what they were raised with. It's what they know. Or in many chances when they don't have a father in their life. That's where the problem gets really difficult. Challenge with a young man with no father in his life is he doesn't know how to be a man. And that's the challenge. So, why was my life different than my father's? My father, he wasn't necessarily the best father and he wasn't there. The difference in my life is the fact that I became a follower of Jesus. I found Jesus at age 15. I went to visit a church in East LA on Olympic and Atlantic. And the pastor came up to me after the service and he says, "Do you know Jesus loves you?" And my heart jumped out of my chest. My spirit soared. You talk about a heart resonating with a message. I didn't need any words after that. I was sold and I knew it. And from that day forward, my life has been just very different than the course it started off on. During that time in my life, God brought 2 different mentors to me. The first one was a gentleman named Richard Lugo. He's passed now, but he was such a good man. He used to take food to Mexico. He opened up, I think 5 different churches up in Mexico. But he went to the poorest parts of Mexico. I'm talking the hills where there's no electricity and people were desperate. And he was just such a kind man. And he used to take me all the time with him. The second one was Richard Ochoa, who was a pastor of the vineyard in Pico Rivera. And I love that man. He was a man's man. Sometimes we were afraid of him. Most of the times we loved him. And we'd pretty much do whatever he wanted because we were his guys. And he really was our spiritual fathers, our spiritual father. The interesting thing about both these men is Richard Lugo dropped out of high school to go fight in World War II. There was not a high education. He was a very simple man. Pastor Richard Ochoa dropped out of school in 9th grade because he was incarcerated. But these men meant everything to me. And it wasn't the matter of their education or charisma, it's they loved me. And from them, they never preached to me. They never shoved Bible down my throat. All they did was let me watch them be a man. And as a child growing up, watching these 2 men at 2 different periods in my life be men, it really set the pattern for me. And it brought in an understanding of a godly man and following God's way and what a man looks like. One of the biggest challenges is young men need a man in their life. They need to see a man who does life well. Sometimes they'll have a man in their life, but let's just say it straight, that man maybe is not the best example. And what they need to see is a man who does life well. A man who understands God, a man who knows how to treat his wife, his children right. And that will teach him. So, it's funny. There's a story about elephants in Africa on a reservation. And they opened an elephant reservation. And the problem is shipping the elephants to the reservation. So they only took the young elephants, very small young elephants, and they brought them to the reservation. Well, some 16 years later, they start having trouble in the reservation. They're finding the rhinos being killed and other animals being killed and gored. So they knew it was the elephants doing it. And what they found is these elephants were hitting their teenage years. And they call it musking. And that's when they come into their own manhood. And they become very aggressive. And they were murdering other animals for no reason. The solution was they found a bull elephant and they brought him to the reserve. And once the presence of the bull elephant was in the reserve, these young elephants fell right into line and followed his example, and the killing stopped. I know humans are not elephants and elephants are not human, but it says a lot. You see these young men going out of control and doing heinous things. They don't have that bull elephant in their life. So we understand that boys need men in their life, and they need men in their life who do life well. Really, a boy needs a place to cash in his chips for the things he accomplishes. And a lot of young men don't have that. They need to learn from somebody, because if you don't have a man in your life, who do you learn all the issues from? Sex, relationships, how you conduct yourself. You learn it from other teenagers. And that's about the worst place to learn this. So, in short, boys just need a man in their life who care, a man who gives a damn about them. And that means everything. And that presence of that man will have a profound impact in their life. So the idea is to create a show. It's just like the catchphrase of the show, a father's voice to a fatherless generation. Not everyone has these men in their lives. Not all these guys even understand that they need it. But you could come into the show, listen to the show, and you can hear men talk about issues. And we're not polished, and we're not, it's very authentic and it's very real. And we'll say silly things sometimes, things will slip out. Our opinion may not always be a perfect, stellar opinion on something, but it is authentic, and we're men who love God, and we want to be a voice to other men. With this in mind, I approached the church, Rise Church of La Habra, here in La Habra, California. It's in North Orange County, right on the border of LA County. And I approached the church elders and I asked for their support. And they said yes. What I mean by support is they pay, they partially pay for the production of the show. There's no salaries here. Everyone's a volunteer. And even our sound engineer volunteers a lot of his time to make sure these things complete and do the best job he can getting them cleaned up for presentation. So the church agreed, and church supports. So that's before every show you'll always hear us. We're sponsored by Rise Church in La Habra. And it's a beautiful church if you ever want to come visit. So with this in mind, I then recruited 2 other men within the church. And Chris Lawler, who you see on the show, and he's the one with his son, James. Chris came on, and Chris had radio experience. You can hear it in his voice. He has like the perfect voice. I asked him, I said, Chris, would you consider doing this? And he told me that God has been putting on his heart creating an outreach to young men. And it fell right into line to what this show is. And, he just jumped in. He was all in. And then I reached out to Frank Lomeli as well. And Frank, I love Frank. He's just, if there were 5 of us hunting a lion, he'd be the guy with the spear first to poke the lion. He's the jump-in guy. And he's entertaining, and he's just real. And I love that about Frank. He's just very honest, very real. And he pulls no punches, and he is what he is. And these 2 men, I think, are excellent choices. Chris, and we'll get into it more as the show goes. Chris had challenges in his life, and he has his son, James, who has autism. And his form of autism, he's very social, and there's challenges that come with that too. And so you'll see James sometimes start talking in the back of the show or stick his head in the shot, and we make room for that, and that's allowed because we love James. And this is not the show. This is a show that wants to show authentic fathers in action, and that's pretty much how it is when you have James on the show. So I got these 2 men, and they both jumped on. And they've given much of their time and effort into this. And then my son, Mark, is the producer. And these guys have just been wonderful. And I have such a deep appreciation for everything they've done for the show. And they're all in. And I love that. We made a commitment to do this for 1 year and see where God takes it. And it's funny because when we first started, the idea was let's start it quietly so we can get through all the learning curves. So we're still struggling with that. We're releasing the YouTube video every Friday. We did a podcast launch, and now we're going to go back and re-put the videos in and do a second podcast launch because we're still learning the process and how to do it right and how to do it when you search for it, you can find it. There's all these things to learn about this, and this is the learning curve we've been going through. But it's going well. So I originally thought we'd get 2 or 3 views. I really didn't think, and we're not in some overwhelming views, but I'm shocked at where we're at now, and I'm very happy about that. I'll go into where we want to take the show and how that plays into that. So the idea is we're fathers who love God, and we want to be a father's voice to a fatherless generation. Myself and the guys, we're not perfect. We have a lot of life experience, though. We've chewed a lot of tough ground. None of us were born with a silver spoon in our mouth, and yet God has blessed us. So, but I like that. I think the one thing, the greatest asset we have is we're authentic, even to the point where we don't mind saying stupid things. One thing, you don't want to embarrass yourself, especially when things get out into the internet. But we've all made that commitment. Hey, we're here, and we're going to do it real or not at all. And so I'm very happy with where the show's at now and how it's been going. I see the show reaching the following: fatherless boys and fatherless men. Men and boys who had bad examples in their lives. Maybe they did have an uncle, a father in their life, but they didn't do life well. I hope the show also is encouraging to fathers. So maybe you did have a father in your life and you're doing life, but you just want to hear the show, because there's knowledge and there's nuggets you can gather from it listening. So for the fathers out there who are watching the show, thank you. And also, I really hope that the show would have an impact on mentors, whether it's a big brother mentor, an uncle mentor. Don't leave your young men behind. Go back, reach a hand out to them. They need you. They need your input. And you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be clean. Like I said, all you have to do is care. Just give a damn in their life. And that will matter. So my hope is the show has this ability to reach multiple demographics and multiple people. So where are we now? We're on our 10th episode, which will be released next week. We're working through the learning curve of YouTube and podcasts. So, and we're in a good place. We're all highly motivated. We enjoy this. The hardest thing is getting all our schedules together to do the recording. We all have different things going on in our lives, and it's a little bit like herding cats, but we're all motivated to be here, so it works out. The other thing is, where are we going? Well, it's my hope that right around episode 20, maybe a little sooner, we're going to do a social media blitz. The idea is we want to leverage social media to reach more people So the idea is through the church, through our family and friends, and hopefully through the listeners, we can share the podcast and get the word out there. It's not for everybody, but it is definitely for some. So we want to we ask people to share, click the like button. See, I'm still learning how to do that. Share it, click the like button, and we want to do electronic media and disperse it so people could share that, and they can share it on all the different social media outlets. And hopefully through that, we can gain an audience, a larger audience, and reach more people. It's not about the numbers. It really is about reaching people. So that's our next step. We're excited about it, and we feel blessed to be here. And the biggest thing is I really want to thank all of you for joining us on this journey. It's not easy. It takes a little bit of courage, and it's not comfortable. But your likes, your views, your encouraging words, they just really mean a lot to us. And they're really giving us some encouragement through all of this. So I hope you like the show. I hope it resonates with you. I hope you feel welcome to it. I hope our words help. Our words bring thought and wisdom. That's the hope. We really do have a love for the fatherless. We really do have a love for the orphan. In a sense, a lot of fatherless kids are orphans. And we have a heart for that, man. And we want to be there for you. We want to help you. And we want to care for you. We want to love you. And that's our heart's desire. So that's all we have for this podcast. Just to touch bases of who are we, how did we start, where we are, and where do we want to be tomorrow. So with all that said, I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this, say that we love you guys very much, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you.